Hey guys. So I ended up getting a request from a subscriber to kind of break down how I did my track Another Day from the album, and it's the biggest one on there. It's probably done the best, it's super future bass track and everything, and it's great. However, when I started work on the new album, I kind of ended up cleaning everything from my projects folder, so I didn't have the project thing, and I wish I kept it, but now I know for this one to keep most of them. But anyways, so with that being said, he was more curious on how the future bass like sound was made, like the synths and everything. So I kind of have a little track to break down, but just so you guys know what I'm talking about, in case you haven't heard the track, it's kind of the post breakdown where all the saws come in. I can show you on here real quick. Super dramatic bit, and yeah, and wait for it. But yeah, super cool sound. Now, a lot of that and Another Day was specifically sampling. However, I do know a general idea how to get that sound consistently, but the problem is it's a little bit of a process. So I'm always going to say and recommend this, mess with it on your own for like ever until you just can figure it out yourself, because I'm learning most of my stuff from muscle memory. But yeah, so this little project in Logic is kind of going to explain a little bit on how that whole sound works. So essentially the plan is we're going to take step by step on how to get this nice little piano. Super simple, nothing special. And then we're going to get it into this wonderful little synth of ours. A lot more chill. A lot more chill than Another Day was, but I'll get to explain. But the process is all the same. You just got to fiddle with all the constraints and different things like that. So basically, I always would prefer starting out with the piano. You get your basic sound down and then change it up from there with simple triads and the chords. So as you can see, wrong button. There we go. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Select it. But yeah, so simple triad chords. It just goes through, everything's normal. And make sure it's in your major of what you're going for. Quantize, all that jazz. You can change the steps if you want to make it more consistent. Different junk like that. You know, that's pretty basic. So then we hop over to our channel mixer over here, and you will see very quickly this little piano has absolutely nothing on it. It's just the little Yamaha Grand Piano default on Logic, whereas the next channel has all the effects down here. So I'm probably gonna have to crop that over so you guys can see it. Let's see. Yeah, we'll be fine. I'll edit it. I always do that. But yeah, so the second over here has tremolo, chroma, chorus, dimension, and we'll kind of go over in a second. But yeah, so just a comparison. First track, nothing on it. Super basic. Whereas you have second track with all the effects. Whoa, where did that come from? But yeah, we'll break it down for you. So the first effect, I'll go ahead turn off most of these. So first effect is tremolo. Tremolo is kind of the basic thing that gives you that wavy vibe. So if let's go ahead and set this on loop so I can do it while I'm talking. But yeah, tremolo is literally what takes it from being regular synth to the future bass, like wavy sound pretty much. You can copy these things if you want, it doesn't make much difference. But you can make it sound sharper or lighter. So for example, right now it's smooth because I like that sound, but I could go, if I'm doing a more dubsteppy type sound, I could change the smoothing, and you see how the little waves change on there, and it changes the sound entirely. See, now it just sounds like it's breaking up, or it's like glitchy type of sound. But then I smooth it out. Suddenly that sounds way better. And not only that, but you can also change the rate of how much it does. So if I slow it down, see, and now it's not near as fluctuating. The way I kind of like to do it is I'll usually do it with tempo and just basically based off that and fix it. But yeah, it kind of changes based upon your song. Plus, depending on where you put the notes, it'll do that differently as well. It's just how it reads it. Because if I'm not mistaken, the waves will go consistently throughout the entire thing. So those might not change, but where you place the notes will. That type of thing. But yeah, you have a bunch of different presets you can use for these. Monotremolo is just what I like the most. But like I said, this is what I say, experiment with anything and everything you possibly can. So on top of that, have good old chromaverb. Specifically, I put the dirty chamber. It's another one of the presets, but you can have plenty of presets. It doesn't really matter. Again, experiment. It's fun. But yeah, so I play it, and this is kind of what gives it more space and that filling throughout the track. It's just that nice big room sound, pretty much. That's a really nice effect. Doesn't do anything too special. You can do this for vocals or anything else, really, and it'll be fine. I have metronome on. Not like it's a bad thing. Always have metronome on. It's really good. Just distracting. And I was getting bugger click. But yeah, you have the decay. You can make it a little more. It lasts longer. Distance kind of like judges the space. Pretty much is all it does. Dry is how basic you want to sound. So do you want to hear the full spectrum of it in the beginning without the effects, or do you want to hear it low and that just keeps it more gentle? And wetness is kind of, again, a space filler. It's how much it spreads, I guess, would be the way to do that. But you spread it too much, all of a sudden you're just overwhelmed with it. Like, you can have echo a ton, but yeah, attack, kind of similar to what dry is and how fast it messes with it. Size, density, they're pretty self-explanatory. Density is just how cluttered it is if you need an explanation for that. But yeah, neat stuff, pretty simple. And then we have our little chorus. Chorus is a neat little effect because it kind of spreads it across a little bit. So like, if you take a second to hear it with and without the chorus, it's pretty straight. It's not very wide on the spectrum, it's just right in the middle. Whereas if you press the chorus, it's spread around. Now I feel like it's left to right. That's why I like to mix with headphones a lot. I mix with my studio monitors too, but it's not like the same. I like getting lost in it, but that's just me. And you can mix in how much it sounds. So like 0, it doesn't sound like it's changed at all. Turn it up a little bit. Okay, it's changed placement. 100 is like, oh yeah, that's definitely everywhere except the middle, pretty much. But also added to it, this is a little can't make words. This right here is a little plugin called Dimension Expander. I can't remember where I got it from. You can look it up. It's a free thing. Everything I have on here is free. I've never bought, as much as I want to buy some stuff, like a Serum Synth or something. I've never gone through the trouble of doing it. But basically, this little thing is kind of like a spreader, I guess, on a mixer board would be a way to call it. Like on the mixer board I've worked on before while working at a camp was you would press it and it would essentially split the audio to left and right, so it's more of a surrounding sound. Kind of similar to what the chorus effect does, just a little different. So we can hear it without the expander. And then we add the expander. Solely it just covers that spectrum again. It's another size thing. But yeah, you can make it to where it's not filling much space at all, or you can fill up the entire space. And then similar to chromaverb, it's a mix of the dry and wet. Wet has way more of a delay. It hangs out longer. It spreads as long as it can. And then dry, you just like, hey, I don't tell nothing. And it doesn't seem like it's a lot of difference, and in a way it's not, but to me, if you could fill any space whatsoever, because I just like that full spectrum, it's kind of what swallows you up, and a lot of future bass does that. That's the whole point of the what did we call them? The sense of just overwhelming, filling the space and carrying most of the track all the time because it fills it so well. So, but yeah, that's kind of how the basic thing's made. Now, another thing about how space is in future bass, because it fills that spectrum, what you can also do afterwards when you get the basic of what you do is add different note structure. So for example, on here I actually added a bass note on this track compared to the just regular triads. This adds those more complex chords and progressions that the ear's just more into hearing pretty much. So if I were to compare, if we have our regulars with triad chords, and then we have our bass note added to it, carries a different tone and it sounds more full. It's filling up more of that sound spectrum. Because it's kind of like how you see on mixers where you have a bass, treble, and high. I just kind of added a bit more of the bass to it so it spreads across that spectrum. And rather than stopping there, you can keep it there, or you could do like I did and also add a higher note to cover spectrum as well. And if it's anything from music theory that I've kind of learned, it's that the farther you spread the notes, it creates more of that dramatic type of feel, which a lot of future bass just has. Like, you know, once that drop hits with it, it's just this big dramatic thing all of a sudden. So it's a really cool deal that, I mean, it makes sense to me. I love it, and it works. And so then all I had to do is just add the rest of the track for context, pretty much. But yeah, basically, it fits the spectrum. You know, it's because it has a higher sound. It fills up. This is kind of how future bass works, I guess would be the way to say it. But the synths kind of fill up that middle space of the track. So like if I solo this out, you know, it's that mid-tone that the treble would have. And then if I add in, you know, you got the beat of course, but if then I have the bass on its own, which kind of helps itself for the most part, that carries the low end of the track. So it's keeping all the bass tones while we have the middle tones being taken care of in our synth. And then we have our lovely little soft bells. And this is way on the high end of the spectrum of like how sound works. So that added to it, all of a sudden you have all three layers covered in sound. You have the synth with the middle, bass covering the low, and the keys on the highs for those bells. And then you pretty much just add a beat. But yeah, obviously, this is super simplified. Like another the track took me forever to do. I was working on it consistently, constantly, and I could show you the synth too, speaking of. This is the ES2 synth. It's another default. Essentially, I could tell you a dozen different things or try to explain these waves, but all I can say is that they just make it sound different. The way I ended up making these sound the way they are is purely from messing with it long enough just to figure it out. So if you want the specifics, I could open it up and real quick just to kind of compare and contrast, if that helps anything. If you want this sound specifically, we can do that. So obviously just open it up and then ES2, synthesizer, create the track. And here we are, the wonderful default. Now, I also want to show you that you can actually save these presets, which is a bomb. Like I said, I mess with it for so long afterwards. It's just easier that way. That's the wrong one because I'm a genius. There we go. But yeah, so you have user default, which is what kind of what I created with it. There's the settings. You can. Yeah, you basically, once you have your settings you want, you literally click saved as, and you can save it as within the folders of what it is, and it basically just shows up in your menu. So for example, I'll save it as floaty future bass synth, because we'll just call it that. That's the first initial reaction I got. So floaty super bass synth. Now it's on my tab. So if I ever want it, I just click floaty super bass synth, and it's there. But yeah, so default, you can have a listen real quick. We'll just experiment here. This is what I'm talking about. It's the fun part. You get to mess with everything. So if I take it, and I'm just going to plop it here. I know I'm doing it with this in the way, but it's basically just adding and dropping a track. If you know how Logic works, that's simple. Mute everything. Yeah, sounds super, super gross. Like, not pretty at all. Whereas now I can just load my little floaty future bass synth, and it sounds much better. But yeah, you can compare and contrast between the two. Like, here's a floaty bass synth, and oh well, I can't do that if I'm in between, can I? But yeah, essentially, play with it as much as you like. Like, that's the only way I can explain I've messed with stuff to get decent enough at it to where I could make a sound like that and adding just enough effects. But yeah, you can see on here, like, the synth waves aren't really any different. Main differences like oscillators and stuff, and the tremolo and everything. So literally the synth was barely changed other than the effects that got on top of it, because the tremolo is what creates that frequency. But yeah, literally everyone who like made future bass and EDM like as big as it was were the people who found these new sounds and everything. And I think that's why I love the genre just so much, and that's like my favorite to do, and why I DJ and stuff, because it's one thing to make music and hear it, but to experience it and then you create something entirely new. And that's the same reason I love DJing. You play the records and all those different things, and it's just a super awesome thing to do. So anyways, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been an awesome thing. I would love to hear from you guys more frequently if possible, because I love doing consistent content, but I wanted to make it for you guys. So if you guys have any questions or have any other ideas, I'm planning to do some vocal chop tutorial in the future soon. I'm still working on that track, but hopefully I can get it to you guys as soon as possible. Like, comment, subscribe. I have a Patreon page if you'd like to support me, and I could keep doing this. That'd be awesome. Don't have any rewards yet, but we can get there if it goes good enough. So I'll see you guys later. Hope you guys had fun. Hope it was helpful, and I'll see you around.